Welcome to Ideological. My name is Zach Lee, and we've got something very exciting today. We are interviewing a retired Navy SEAL, Randy Roselle. Randy, thank you for being on the show.
No, I think it's an honor.
Today we're going to be talking about mental toughness from a guy that understands mental toughness, me, but mainly Randy. He also understands mental toughness. And so, Randy, I want you to chat a little bit about your background, being in the SEAL teams, just so people get to know who you are, and don't be shy. Randy is a humble guy, so I will boast for him, but I want the audience to get to hear that you're a guy who knows this and you've been in this world for a while.
Yeah, so like you said, retired Navy SEAL, spent 22 years active duty, started out my career as a FMF corpsman with the Marines. Then September 11th happened, and that's when I decided to become a SEAL. I spent the rest of my career in the SEAL teams. Spent my last 3 years developing in the Combatives program for the SEAL teams, and kind of got to leave the community a little better than I found it that way, which I loved. So once I retired in 2016, I became a firefighter paramedic for the city of San Diego. And in 2022, I decided to leave California, come home to Texas, taught Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 2 years. I am a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at a gym in Dallas. And then in March, I decided to leave that gym and start my own company, American Warrior Combatives, where I teach hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, and tactical shooting full time.
That's awesome. So that's actually how I met Randy. Is I was doing something called Krav Maga, which is a martial arts system. It's fine. It's not bad, but there's some things about it I don't like. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who we both know. He's a friend of ours, former Navy SEAL. And he said, I need to introduce you to Randy. And I was like, I don't know who Randy is. So he put me in touch with Randy, and I called him and basically said, listen, I want to learn how to fight. I've heard that you're the guy that kind of led the combatives for the SEALs in Coronado and developed that system. And so I want to learn that. Yes, and amen to other systems. Jiu-Jitsu is awesome. Some of these other systems are awesome at certain things, but I want to know something that's going to work every time. Guns, knives, buddies. So I've been training with Randy for probably about 2 years. So I'm just going to shamelessly promote his company before we get into this podcast. It's American Warrior Combatives, and he teaches individual classes, hand-to-hand stuff. He also teaches tactical classes. So you want to learn to shoot rifle, pistol, tactical medicine, that kind of stuff. He's your guy. We'll throw a link on the video or something so that way you can contact Randy. A quick disclaimer before we get into this, that neither Randy nor his company, AWC, necessarily endorse any other podcast that I do. Now, I think that they might actually like them, but I'm not allowed to say that. So if I say something that offends you in another podcast, get mad at me. Don't send Randy an angry email. He's the good guy and I'm the bad guy. So today we're going to be talking about mental toughness and overcoming fear. Mm-hmm. This is something that is very interesting right now. There's a lot of guys talking about this. There's a lot of former team guys talking about this. Mm-hmm. But I want to hear from you before we jump into it. Talk to me about probably the place where that journey begins in BUD/S. Talk to me about your experience. I mean, we all know BUD/S is so easy and everybody makes it through, but you had to do it so many times. It's so hard. Yeah. Talk to me about your experience of BUD/S. First of all, tell the audience kind of what BUD/S is. Yeah. It's what people always see on YouTube and stuff, but tell them what it is, and then talk about your experience in BUD/S.
So BUD/S is an acronym, stands for Basic Underwater Demolition / SEAL Training. And it's what you have to go through to become a Navy SEAL. You're not done once you graduate BUD/S. You still got like another 5 to 6 months.
SQT and
that's right, SQT. And then you finally get your trident, and then you get to the team, and then you're still a F and G, right? Yeah. But I have a unique story when it comes to going through BUD/S. I actually went into Hell Week 4 times before I finally made it. I was unsuccessful my first 3, had different reasons or excuses that I kept getting knocked out of the saddle, but I finally made it. And I've got a book coming out called Pressing Forward that talks about all of that.
Fantastic.
But I do think BUD/S is the hardest military training that our military has to offer. It's arguably the world's hardest military training. And it takes quite a bit of mental toughness, which is what we're talking about today, to go through it. It really takes a lot to keep going through it.
Sure.
Especially as many times as I did.
Yeah.
So it's a little unique that way. I'm the only one that I know that has gone into Hell Week 4 times. So a little different. I wish I'd made it through on my first. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I would like to go through Hell Week 0 times, but if I have to, 1 time.
Yeah.
But 4 seems just masochistic.
A little glutton for punishment.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So tell me a little bit about, before we get into how you got through, and then also, because the mental toughness doesn't stop when Buds is over. I mean, you've got it for the rest of your career. And so I want to talk about that too. But tell me a little bit about some crazy story you have where you're just getting beat, whether it's in Buds, whether it's through Hell Week. I know you probably got whatever stories you can tell. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. There's
so many fun things.
There's so many. Oh my gosh. All right. There's this one time we were doing the O course and we had this poor kid. I wasn't good at running. I sucked at running. I was horrible at it. There's something called the Goon Squad, and it's for all the people that can't keep up on the runs. And I was pretty much king of this thing. Yeah. Right. But the one thing I was good at was the O course. So even though, I didn't run that well, I was fairly athletic, so I could do the O course. And we had this kid, this fellow student who, was a little bigger, a little chubbier, and he sucked at the O course. So he was always in the Goon Squad of the O course. And the instructors had brought us over and they had me and they're like, hey, you're going to help him out and you guys are going to do this and that. And then they had to start doing different things together. And so finally this kid got frustrated. He comes over, picks me up and just body slams me into the dirt in front of all the instructors. And they thought that was the greatest thing ever because I kept beating him at everything. So he just got frustrated. I love it. And runs over, picks me up, body slams me into the sand. And, I'm not really a small person. Yeah. I'm not a big person, but I'm not a small person. And they thought that was the greatest thing ever. And I thought that was pretty crazy to get picked up and body slammed into the sand.
Yeah, when you're winning. It's supposed to pay to be a winner.
Yeah. You're not supposed to. But I'm like, man, that was genius. Yes. I was like, that was genius.
I love that.
So that was one of the crazy things that's happened. I mean, when you go through it that many times, you have all kinds of crazy things that happen. I almost got in a fight with the brown shirt one time. Yeah.
Brown shirts, just to be clear, they're guys that are still in first phase but have made it through Hell Week, whereas before that you've got a white t-shirt. So.
I had got caught during stealth and concealment. And stealth and concealment is a night where we're supposed to... We get dropped off on one area and we have to make it to these helicopters, but we can't make it to them before a certain time. And the instructors are out looking for us, and they have other students that are brown shirts that have made it through Hell Week that are out looking for us. And I ended up getting caught, and they take us to these ice boats, and it's so cold. Like 12 of us had got caught, and they kept putting us in these things and in these things. And only me and one other guy made it through. Like how horrible it was being in those damn ice boats again, because they stripped us down. They stripped us down to our tri-shorts. Yeah. So... And they're like, finally, after 10 other guys had quit, it's just me and this other guy still just freezing. And they're like, all right. They throw everybody else's camis and all our camis in a pile. They're like, you guys got 2 minutes to go down there, put on camis and get out of here. Well, I ended up just throwing on any camis I could find. Part of it, most of the camis were from those 10 guys that had just quit that were with us in the ice boats. And I wear a size 10 shoe, and I must have got like some size like 13 shoe or something. And I had camis that were, the top was too tight, the pants were too big, the boots were flopping. I just threw them on the best I could. I made it over to like these culverts, and I hid in there until close to the time came. And then, so it was getting close to time. And I jump out of the culvert and I just sprint. Yeah. But I've got like clown shoes on. Yeah. Clopping all along through the soft sand trying to make it to this helicopter. This brown shirt kept up to me and he's like, oh, I caught you. You're coming with me. Yeah. I'm like, I've already been in that damn ice boat once. I'm not going back in there. We're going to fucking fight. Totally. And he's like, you already went in it once? I'm like, yeah, and I will fight you before I go back in that thing. And he's like, all right, man, get out of here. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Very cool. Okay. Let me ask one question about that, and then I want to transition to the mental side. Sure. As a guy who loves Hell Week, because you keep going back, what's the worst part of Hell Week?
Again, just so in case you don't know, the worst part of first phase is a 5.5 day period called Hell Week where you get almost no sleep and you're just beat the entire time. It's where most guys, is it fair to say it's where most guys drop out is during Hell Week, or do they drop out before
You get
that?
about half your quitters before Hell Week.
Okay.
And then you get the other half during Hell Week.
Okay. What's the worst part of Hell Week?
Oh my gosh. It's all horrible.
Yeah.
Monday night is probably the worst night.
When does it start? Just for, because some
Okay.
I know what you mean, but not everybody. Yeah.
So it starts Sunday night around midnight, but you didn't really sleep on Saturday because you were nervous, right? Sunday, you're getting ready to go into Hell Week, so you're doing all the prep for the boats and the logs and everything. Then you finally either go into a classroom or go into these tents, and you're supposed to be sleeping, but you can't sleep because you know what's about to start. So. And then at some point, breakout happens. And breakout is when they had the machine gun fire and the smoke and the hoses and it's controlled chaos. And it's honestly a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's a lot of fun. And so you get through breakout and then you start surf torture. So, and then you got to pick up the boats, and you have to run the boats from Coronado all the way down to Imperial Beach. And that is completely awful because you feel like your neck is going to break.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going to trip the entire time because you're running with the boat on top of your head. That evolution is awful because literally it's a 9-mile run with the boat on top of your head. When you get down there, you spend the whole next day down in Imperial Beach, down at ATC, Advanced Training Command. And then Monday night comes, so it's your first full night. And it's the hardest night to get through because that's the night you have the most quitters.
Yeah.
So you're eating chow Monday nights, MRE next to your boat. And for me, that was always the biggest gut check.
Sure.
Trying to make it through Monday night. Because I knew if I made it through Monday night, I'd be fine.
You'd make it.
And that was always the toughest time because you're sitting there and the sun's going down and the instructor's like, oh no.
Yeah.
The sun's going down. You guys know what that means. You're going back in the surf.
Yeah.
It's going to be cold. And, you already did the surf torture on Sunday night.
Sure.
And it's completely awful. I remember the Hell Week I made it through. We had 19 quitters on Monday night. Just right then. So that to me was probably the biggest gut check was making it through Monday night because you know you're going right back into surf torture and everything else. And then the actual evolution that broke me twice was Still Pier.
Okay.
So Still Pier is now you've ran back to the Buds compound and you're across the street at NAB, Naval Amphibious Base. And you're doing an evolution, they call it Still Pier, where you're treading water in the bay. And you've got to take off your camis and throw them out. And every time you come out, you take off another piece. And then you're doing push-ups and spraying you with a hose. And that evolution gave me pneumonia and SIPE, which is called swimmer-induced pulmonary edema. So that one was the one that got me twice.
Nice. Yeah.
But Monday night to me was the gut check. The run down to Imperial Beach,
Sure.
the 9-mile run with the boat on top of your head,
getting bald spots and stuff.
Oh
on the top, rubbing off the
nobody's
hair.
got any hair by the end of Hell Week on the top, on the crown of their head. It's all wore off.
Okay, so what you just said is really interesting because Monday night being that breaking point, it's a mental thing. So let me ask this question, and a lot of team guys have been asked this question, but I want to get your thoughts. What is the difference between the guys that make it through and the guys that don't? Because it's not physical strength.
No.
It's not. You have some of the strongest guys drop out early. You have some of the guys that aren't as physically strong. They're mentally strong. What is the difference between the guys that make it and the guys that don't mentally? And I'm sure it varies. I mean, certain guys find different motivations for different things, but what was it for? Why did you make it and another guy not? Or why do some guys make it and other guys don't? To say it another way, if you have A and B and let's say physically they're identical, they're twins and they work out the same, why does one make it and one doesn't?
I think one guy is able to just break it up into smaller steps.
Okay.
And another guy's looking at the big picture. I talk about this, we're talking about mental toughness and everything. You have all kinds of voices that pop into your head, right? And I call it the monkey brain in my book. Your monkey brain is that part of your brain that anytime you go through anything stressful, especially physical, but it could be anything, that says, hey, I can't make this. Hey, crap, I'm going to have to go get cold again. Oh, I'm freezing. All right, I think I'm going to die. I can't take one more step. My neck's going to break. My back's going to break. I'm letting everyone down. That, you can't control that shit. You can't control those negative thoughts that just pop into your head. One guy realizes that's not him. That's just the monkey brain talking. That's just anytime I go through something hard, that's just weakness talking. You got to push that out. You can't let the weakness win.
I love that. So how do you push? So I've heard another team guy say the difference between the guys that make it and the guys that don't is the guys that make it, quote, don't let a negative thought complete itself. Because the thoughts hit both people.
Yes.
But one's on a run and says, man, I don't know if I can do this. And the other one says, I don't know if I can do this. How do you, what did you do to, when the monkey brain is talking, to use your analogy, what do you do to not listen to that? Do you replace it with other thoughts? Do you just say that it's not true? Do you distract yourself with something else? What do you do when you're hit with those negative thoughts?
I remind myself of the truth, and I remind myself of what my goal is. And I thought about my boat crew. You know, I thought about the other guys, not letting them down and continuing on for them. So thinking less about myself, more about others.
Yeah.
It tends to take that away from you. And realizing that you're not alone.
Sure.
The guy next to you is hurting just as bad as you are. He may not look like it.
Yeah.
All right. But he is. But I think realizing that you're going to have negative thoughts, they're going to pop in. You're going to have that self-defeatist stuff. Realize what it is. Give it a name. Oh, that's my monkey brain. Shut the fuck up, monkey brain.
Yeah.
That's not who I am.
I love that. That's great.
So,
Okay. That's huge. Let me mention a few things, and you tell me how this plays into mental toughness. So you just talked about one, which is huge, which is controlling the negative thoughts and not letting them win, where the voice of truth has to be louder than that voice of doubt. I think that's huge. I'm going to mention a few things. The first one, and I want you to get your thoughts on it. The first one's visualization. One of the things that guys that make it through, they say that, hey, I have visualization. What do they mean by that? What are they visualizing? Is it their future success? Is it them running with a trident on their chest? What is visualization?
I think it's different for everyone for what they see. For me, I did visualize a trident and wearing that on my chest. I would see it every day on the instructors. Right.
Yeah.
You know, I'd see UD SEAL instructor, you know, and I'm like, I want that.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just visualizing yourself to making it to chow.
Yeah.
Making it to that next evolution, you know, seeing yourself with that brown t-shirt on. What's hard is like, I think why some people quit is they go into Hell Week and they start and they're like, man, it already hurts. This is already the worst pain I've ever been in. And I've been in this thing for 4 hours. How the hell am I going to make it to Friday?
Yeah.
You can't look at Friday. You can't visualize Friday yet.
Right.
You just got to visualize a chow hall.
Right.
I just got to make it to chow.
That's a huge, the compartmentalization is huge. It's the whole, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, you know, because what happens is you're hurting day one and you're like, I can't do this shit for 6 months.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You just have to do it till the next sand dune. You have to do it to the next evolution. You have to do it. This sucks. It's going to change. Hang in there. The compartmentalization seems huge. Were there any mantras that you told yourself going through? Because I've heard that guys will have something they kind of repeat in their mind to kind of keep the monkey brain away, to use that. Did you have any? Not everybody has those. Did you have any of those, like, I'm going to be fine, or I'm trying to think, there was another team, guys, it was looking good, feeling good, ought to be in Hollywood or something. They just have things they tell each other. That's
different things.
Some of them get cheesy, but do you have any of those things?
Mine was just don't let the weakness win.
Okay.
You know, I mentioned that in my book.
And tell me the name of your book again. When's it coming out?
It's Pressing Forward.
Okay.
It should come out hopefully next month.
Great. Awesome.
This is it. No matter what, you're going to be in pain. You're going to be in the pain of continuing on, or you're going to experience the pain of quitting.
Which is way worse. Way worse.
Right?
Yeah.
One, your knee hurts, your neck hurts. You can't really breathe because you got sype.
Right.
One is a fucking knife in your heart that you can't take out.
Yeah.
And you're going to live with that for a long time. And a lot of people, and obviously some people learn to live with it, or they didn't really want it as bad as they thought.
Yeah.
But for me, it was, I couldn't live with that pain.
Yeah.
I'd much rather live with physical pain than the pain of self-defeat.
Sure.
And I lived with it because, I kept having to go back.
Right.
And I hated that. Like my heart, each time I didn't make it, my heart was still on that beach.
Right.
Well, I had to go fucking get it.
Yeah. I love that.
So
that's huge, dude. Okay. What would you say to somebody who is, there are a lot of people probably even listening to this that want to become braver. They want to be mentally tougher. Maybe they feel like they're not. Maybe there's somebody who's wanting to get into working out. Maybe there's somebody who's scared of things. I've got a lot. Anxiety is a huge thing in our generation right now. What advice would you give for somebody who's afraid of things that wants to start becoming mentally tough? How do they start that? I mean, people say things are take cold showers and that some of that helps, stress inoculation, but I feel like there's more to it than that. What thoughts would you give if some young guy came to you and just said, "Hey, Randy, I'm scared all the time. I've got a lot of anxiety. I want to become mentally tougher. What are some baby steps that I can start doing to not let the weakness win?"
Yeah, I hear you. I think picking one thing at a time.
Okay.
And working on that. With whatever, wherever he's experienced that fear. You said stress inoculation. I love that. But what happens is sometimes when we choose something, we want to do everything at once. And then that lasts like 3 days.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But if you pick one small part of it and you master that, and then you pick another small part of it, and then you master that, and then it starts to become part of your character. So with fear, I've been pretty lucky. I haven't really been scared of things. I think when, and I say this in the book, when our desire to succeed outweighs our fear of failure,
sure,
that fear goes away. So want to succeed, put all your energy into that, and fear will start to dissipate.
Yeah. So don't even focus on the fear, just focus on the other thing, and the fear goes away on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge. Do you have anything, and you might have nothing you're afraid of. Do you have any fears that you've had to in the past work through or have to work through today? And what does that look like? Like, I'm sure that going through all the things you've gone through helps you face a lot of those fears. I mean, you've been facing fear your whole life in a sense. And so then things that might bother somebody else don't bother you. Are there any major things where you're like, man, this is still something I'm fighting through. I want to keep growing in this area. I'm just not there yet. And again, there might not be any, or I might be putting you two on the spot. So if there's not something.
No, that's fine. I'm a husband and a father.
Sure.
My fear is, being the best husband and father I can be, and am I always being that?
Yeah.
I'm not physically afraid of anything anymore.
Sure.
I mean,
you and me both. I'm just kidding. I have some things.
Well, I've developed the skills.
Totally. You've been practicing it. You've
been
doing
practicing it my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to drown. I became a SEAL, right? I'm under the water. I didn't, I don't want to fall to death, right? I jump out of airplanes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to burn to death. I became a firefighter.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So some of the most horrible ways I could think of dying, I literally went and chose professions that, so my biggest fear now is just being the best man I can be for my family.
Sure.
Am I always living up to that? Am I doing that? Are they going to be, I obviously can't be there to protect them all the time.
Right. There are things out of your control.
So like those are the things that scare me.
Totally.
The things when I can't be there to help them, I'm not physically, afraid of anything really for myself.
Yeah.
It's more for my wife and my kids.
Totally. Which, totally. Yeah. And those things that you can't control, they have it right. Like even if you physically protect them, there's diseases, there's car crashes, there are things you can't do. And so, I hear you. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. Let me ask a question. So we've talked a lot about buds. What happens to you psychologically when you first actually go through combat? And where does the mental toughness play out once you're in the teams? Because everyone thinks, okay, you make it through buds and life is easy. Life is not easy in the teams. No. There's a lot still required of you. So what does mental toughness look like now on the combat side, if that makes sense?
Like I said, I told you some people I saw freeze up.
Sure.
Right. And I always like when when I was over there, we were always the aggressors. Majority of the time, we're breaking in people's houses 3 o'clock in the morning, wrapping up people. You know,
I do that to my friends, but it's like a different kind of deal.
Yeah, pink belly them.
Yeah, different deal.
You know, but I was always thinking, like, what happens when we get dropped off and they're already waiting on us? What happens when
you walk into an ambush?
Like how do I want to be? How do I want to react?
Yeah,
and it happened to us, and I was able to react the way I wanted to. But I saw some other people that we'd all gone through the same training and everything else not react that same way. And I was honestly surprised that they weren't, that I actually saw fear in them. And I think it's because they never did that. We were always just the aggressors. We were always the big badass hairy chested frogmen.
Yes.
You know, wrapping people up at night or, you know, doing and, you know, even though we practiced things going bad, I think when we were going through training, some people go through training and they just go, oh, it's training.
Right.
But they don't actually view it as real. So when we were going through training and we would get ambushed and things like that, I would try to do my best to be like, okay, this is not training, this is real.
Yeah.
And so when it did happen to us, luckily I was able to react the way I wanted to. And they say some of the people that have PTSD is because they weren't able to not everyone, of course, right, but some of them, because they weren't able to react the way they wanted to. And I was fortunate enough to always be able to do that. So, but I think it was because I put myself there mentally first. I saw myself in those situations, and I knew who I wanted to be in those situations. And luckily, I was able to be that person.
That's all. Okay, so let me just give a summary of that to make sure I understand. So there's a big difference between just going through the motions of training, that you get attacked and you do a peel or you do a leapfrog or you're doing the motions, but you're still thinking, I'm in training, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Versus when you're actually not in charge and you're actually scared for your life, and all of a sudden, so it's hard to practice that emotional component.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's huge. Let me ask this question, because so are you a big believer? Let's say somebody is scared of something, whether it is, I don't know, it could be all kinds of things. Do you have them practice facing those fears a little bit at a time? Should they hit it head on? If somebody's afraid of snakes, should they go kill a bunch of snakes, or should they stay away from snakes? If somebody's afraid of getting on an airplane, should they just go fly, or should they talk to somebody first? Or what advice would you give if somebody has a fear and we're trying to mentally overcome that? Because it can't be like, if someone's scared of spiders, you want to trap them in a room full of spiders, they'll have trauma forever. There has to be these little steps.
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts as far as doing things you're afraid of, taking little bites, throwing yourself all in, teaching someone to swim by throwing them in the pool? What are your thoughts?
No, I think the little bites is definitely the way to go.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I you know, we talk about me teaching self-defense. I have one of my clients is a female, and she's like, I get very scared when a male approaches me with a loud voice.
Okay.
So she's like, I freeze up, I don't really know what to do. So we do that as stress inoculation during training. So when I come at her, and this is in a safe environment, she knows I'm not going to hurt her.
Right.
But I'll be like, hey lady, you cut me off back there. What the heck were you thinking?
Yeah.
You know, and I'll come at her aggressively.
Yes.
And she has to deal with it and do the techniques that I taught her. But she's, you know, and I'll put on a helmet too, right, when I do this stuff, because I want, you know, now she doesn't see Randy, coach, she sees a helmet, and I tell her, hey, once I put this helmet on, I'm the attacker. Right. Okay, I'm not coach anymore.
That's right.
You know, I'm not Randy.
Yeah.
So you gotta, and that helps her kind of disassociate as well. Like, oh, this is not just Randy. So, but we've built her up to that stuff. Yeah. So it's pretty cool to see how she's progressed.
Totally. That's fast. So I think what most people do, and tell me if you agree with this, it seems like what most people do is they have a fear, so they just avoid it their whole life. So if a woman was afraid of being attacked, a man coming up with a loud voice, she would just stay away from anybody that did that. But the cost of that is you're never free. The cost of that is humans, we're weird in the sense that we almost prefer to have a little bit of pain for the rest of our life. instead of going through a lot of pain now and then having freedom.
That's a great way of saying that.
What are your thoughts on, do you think, why do most people avoid, because I know that's not the mentality with the guys I know that were team guys. Theirs is, man, I'm scared of this, so I'm going to go make myself do it because I hate that it owns me. I've got a good buddy of mine, and he was afraid of snakes, so he literally forced himself to grab snakes and kill them. Now, we're not recommending that you get bit by a snake, but the point there is now it doesn't own him anymore. He still doesn't like them, but it doesn't own him. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with him. You know, I agree with that. When I first started jiu-jitsu, going to a new gym, I didn't know anybody, and I wish I was good at it, but I wasn't. I sucked.
Yeah.
Right? I grew up, I was more of a striker. I was strong, but
I don't know if you can see that on camera. His muscles are just rippling. Okay, sorry, go ahead. That's the only bromance comment I'll make. Go ahead.
But no, it takes mental toughness to suck at something all over again, especially when you're used to being good at something, right? Or, you know, especially like if you're a SEAL and you're supposed to be good at everything, right? That's what everyone assumes. And you got to go to class, and then they're like, oh, you're supposed to be badass at everything. And then like, I'm like, oh man, I'm going here and I'm getting my ass handed to me.
Totally.
You know, so it takes a bit of humility, but again, I didn't want it to, like you talked about, like, hey, I don't want this to own me.
Right.
And I took it and I fell in love with it. And, you know, now I'm a black belt in it and everything else. And, you know, there's that whole saying that, black belt's a white belt that just didn't quit.
Right.
You know?
Everything you do, you start as a failure until you're not. Everyone wants to just be successful. You get to fail and fail. You get to practice being successful while you suck. And then one day you look up and you faked it until you made it. Right. And then it's actually you made it. It's a weird deal.
And fear is the same way, right?
Yes, but that's the thing. What you just said, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
You're afraid of something, and you do it scared. You do it afraid. Yeah. And then you look up after 10 years and you're like, I'm not scared of this anymore. But you're not going to just wake up and it go away. You're not going to, everyone just wants their fear to go away or watch some video. Yeah. You have to do the thing you're scared of, and then you're less scared of it. But the only way out is through. There is no not doing that. And I think that's huge on the mental side. Okay. Well, let me ask one more question for you. What is one thing that you would tell somebody who maybe felt like they were cowardly, maybe felt like they didn't have mental toughness, they want to take the step, they don't really know what to do? What advice would you give them?
I'm dealing with this with my son right now.
Great.
So my son just started 7th grade football.
Okay.
He is not, I was always very naturally aggressive.
Sure.
He is not naturally aggressive.
Sure.
And I asked him, I'm like, how tackling drills go today?
Oh, dude.
And he was like, not good. I'm like, what happened? So on the weekends, we go out and I hold a dummy and he practices the tackling drills. And I'll talk to him, hey, what do you think you did wrong?
Yeah.
You know, why do you think you're not very good at it? Well, some of the other kids are bigger than me. Okay, well, all right, some of the other kids are stronger than me. Well, you want to start working out with that again. We start talking about solutions.
Yeah.
And what he can do to become better at it. And then I help him and I guide him.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean he doesn't get ran over the next day? No, he's probably going to keep getting ran over all year long.
Sure.
And then maybe when testosterone kicks in, he gets into 8th grade and we keep doing this, he'll get a little better. So, you know, he's kind of intimidated and kind of scared to go out there. And one of the things I'm also telling him is like, hey man, it's okay to be aggressive.
Right.
You know, but it's also okay to be scared.
Yeah.
But you're going to keep doing it.
Right.
So
yeah, there is no, so
just keep doing it.
So you know? People don't understand. People think, and you can speak to this more than others because your background on the teams. People think that bravery is the absence of fear, which is not true at all. Like if a robot ran out into battle and got blown up, no one's like, what a brave robot. You have to have the capacity for fear to overcome it.
Yes.
So doing things while you're scared is bravery. Yes. Letting the fear win and not doing it. You're going to be scared either way. That's what people think. They think that brave people just aren't scared. They're scared. You're scared of something. If it's not physical pain, it's something happened to your kids. Everybody's afraid of something. And so I think what you just said is huge, where you do the things while you're scared. That is what bravery is.
Yeah.
And so if that means you're a kid getting hit in football right now, then because I've got a son and it's the same thing where it's, hey, he'll go. I remember he would go through something when he was young. Dad, I don't want to go down the slide. I'm scared. Okay. Well, I'm not going to push you down the slide. That's too far. But I'm also not going to let the fear win. So we're going to do this. I'm going to hold your hand and you go down the slide. So you go down the slide, be in tears. And I'll be like, all right, now say, I'm brave.
Yeah.
I'm brave. You're practicing
Yeah.
a future version of you.
Yeah.
Which isn't true now, but it will be. And so I think that's huge. Well, Randy, thank you so much for being on the show. Again, Randy Rozzell at American Warrior Combatives. If you're interested in tactical training, hand-to-hand combat, I've done both of those with him. Highly, highly recommend. Thanks for taking your time and sharing some of your expertise on mental toughness today.
Thanks for having me on this show, Zach. It was an honor.
Awesome. Thanks, man.